sweet friends. Welcome to another annotation video. These are some of my favorites to make. This is where I take an unread book from my shelf and I live annotate it on camera so that you can get an idea of what I am highlighting, what I'm underlining, writing in the margins, what stands out to me, what needs a tab, just all sorts of annotation goodies. And it's a great way for those of you that are maybe new to annotation or looking for a different technique. It's a nice way to see someone do it live as they're reading the book fresh. So I did one previously last month. I did Happy Place by Emily Henry, read the first couple of chapters and showed you my annotations. And this idea came from my original video called Annotating 101, a step-by-step guide for beginners. In that video, I go through the very beginning steps of getting started with annotating. I talk all about the different techniques, the difference between highlighting something versus circling versus underlining or using brackets. There's so many details in that video. If you are brand new to annotating, it's a great place to start. But in that video at the end as well, I did a live annotation, my very first one. And so many of you loved it and requested more. So that is what this series is on my channel, just me picking up a brand new book and reading together, annotating together, and throwing out my techniques of how I do it. As always, I love hearing about anything you guys are doing that I could use to evolve my annotation journey. But in this video, I'm not going to share any details about those actual techniques or how I do it. Like I said, check out that video, that Annotating 101, if you want further detail on how to get started with annotating or any other questions you might have about my particular approach. That video has all those details in it. I will link it down below in the description as well as at the top of this video. But for today, we're gonna jump right into a brand new book and get started with our annotating. The book I'm going to be annotating today is I Loved You in Another Life by David Arnold. I have 3 annotation supplies in front of me. I have 1 set of annotation tabs. I have 1 Mr. Pen highlighter in light blue. And then I have a fine point pen. This is the Sharpie S-Gel 0.38 nib. It has a really fine point at the end. All of these items are linked below in the description. What I will typically do is put my tab system and key on the title page just to let me know what color I've chosen for what category. For me, over the years, I've come to understand that there are 5 top categories that I like referencing or writing about in books. All of us will have different systems. This is the system that has worked for me really well over the last year and a half. So I've just kind of stuck to it across all of my books. And that is, I will typically use a pink or a red tab for something romantic or sweet. I will use a blue tab for emotional items or anything that's kind of sad. I will use a yellow tab for quotes that I really like. Typically, romance books are heavier on the quotes for me. So that is our quotes tab. Then I will use a purple tab for any character traits, any type of information that I want to remember about a character or anything that they do that's particular to who they are. So I'm going to put characters. And then the last one, I typically like to use a green tab for anything to do with the plot. So any big moments to remember or anything that might be foreshadowing or telling us something about the story, I will use a green tab for that. And this is the system that I have found to work across all of my books, whether it's romance or fantasy. And of course, depending on what book it is, will depend on what tabs you use more. So in a romance novel, of course, you're going to have more of these pink and yellow tabs, at least for me. And in a fantasy novel, I will probably have more of the green tabs because there's a lot more going on with the plot as well as maybe the characters. And with my nonfiction books, I have a whole different system. I will do a nonfiction annotation in a future video, but for today, these are the tabs we're using for this romance novel. Part 1, Requiem. Evan, a bird in a tree at night. My little brother prefers corners. He likes sitting quietly in them, and I just wish people understood that sitting quietly in a corner is not universal code for I am sad, I am lonely, please save me. All it means for sure is that the quiet kid in the corner would like to sit quietly in the corner, and can we not ascribe our own sets of values to quiet kids in corners the world over? Oh, I love that because, wow, we're just jumping right in. So I really like that because it already talks about, you know, just how early conformity can start. There's already so much pressure to be a certain way. And if you're not, then you get, you know, kind of tagged as the strange kid in the corner. And I feel like that's where a lot of our societal issues come from, is that from such a young age, we're almost created to be like cookie cutter versions of each other instead of owning and appreciating all of that individuality. So I'm going to underline that sentence because I really like it. So all it means for sure is that the quiet kid in the corner would like to sit quietly in the corner, and can we not ascribe our own sets of values to kids in corners the world over? And what I'm going to write here is my reaction to this, like I was talking to you about what I felt when reading this. And that's a lot of what annotation is. It's just your personal connection to something you've read or a reaction or response that you have to that. And so I'm going to write here, and you'll see me write typically sideways a lot in especially paperback books because you don't get a lot of space. So I'm going to write here as conformity starts at such a young age. Or at least the pressure of conformity. So I'm going to put that pressure of conformity. It's not like it costs us anything. It's not like we were using that corner to begin with. And look, I'm sure there are some quiet kids in some corners who are sad and lonely and need saving. All I'm saying is let's not assume they all are. Silence and sadness are not the same things, and I wish more people understood that is all. I really like that. Silence and sadness are not the same thing. And I really resonate with this because I do crave a lot of silence in my life as well. I enjoy my own company. I like spending time alone. And so for me, that silence is actually a welcome change in my day or my week. And I'm not always sad. And I think sometimes people think that they're interchangeable, but actually they're not. I might actually highlight that. So in my Annotating 101 video, if you've watched it or would like to watch it, I talk about how you can combine different techniques. So if something really stands out at you, then you can use both techniques of underlining as well as highlighting. Now, I typically save highlighting for direct quotes that characters have said. That's the way that I like to use highlighters. But in this case, like I said, I really love that sentence. It really speaks to me. So I want to use a double technique of both the highlighter and the underline. Okay, says Allie, and she holds back my hair so I don't get vomit in it. And even though I can't see her, I know she has that look in her eyes, the soft one, the one she saves for when she wants me to know I am seen. And so I ramble about quiet kids, and she knows I'm talking about my brother, Will. She knows this because she sees me. You won't love me after this, I say. There's no way you love me after this. I mean, it's mostly you who loves me anyway. I laugh between heaves and feel the sudden urge to plant character flags. This doesn't mean anything, you know. Oh, that's so interesting. I like the way the author describes that. It says, I laugh between heaves and feel the sudden urge to plant character flags. Isn't that something we do all the time? We are so scared of how we may be perceived by somebody, especially someone we love maybe or care about, which it seems like they do. We are so quick to want to justify why we are the way we are or to explain away why we're acting in a certain way. It's like that constant need to always feel like we need to be defending ourselves. And so I love the way they describe that, just the sudden urge to plant character flags. This doesn't mean anything, you know. I know, says Allie. I'm a responsible adult, basically. She says, just breathe, Evan. And I wonder if she was in the basement back at the party when Heather said that thing about all the important stuff in life being easy, like how our bodies breathe on their own, even when we sleep, and how our hearts keep beating no matter what. And that's when I had to leave the party. Were you there, Allie? Do you know why I had to leave the party? I left because the heart is a muscle. I left because of what happens to muscles that don't get used over long periods of time. And even though that basement was packed with people, all I could hear were mottled voices. All I could feel were cruel hands. All I could see were hungry eyes. Oh, that makes me sad. I feel like something really terrible happened, but we aren't for sure just yet, so I don't have anything that I want to write. I also wanted to make a note about, I've underlined a few items here and there, but I haven't used tabs because it's not necessarily something that I want to refer back to. Tabs are typically used to go back and reread something, look at something. And while I have underlined them as important, when I flip through this book and I look at it, they might stand out at me, but it's not necessarily something that I specifically want to reference back. Do you understand, Allie? I left the party because of atrophy. And if I think too hard about it now, I'm afraid I'll stop breathing. If I think too hard about it, I'm afraid my own heart will stop beating. And then whose heart will glow to Will? So it sounds like his brother is quite important to him, Will. Mine, Allie says, and anyway, that's not why you left the party. It's not? No, you left for the same reason you drank 3.5 vodka tonics, which for a constitution as delicate as yours is roughly the equivalent of injecting a shrew with enough sedative to fell a baby moose. Allie gathers a loose strand of my hair, gently tucks it into her fist behind my head. You got shit-faced and ran because of what Heather said about Will. I wipe my mouth with the back of my hand and stand up straight. We're in the park down the road from Heather Abernathy's house, which is as far as I could get before my stomach emptied to annex my internal organs. Heather Abernathy is a sack of shit, says Allie, and her name should be illegal. It's impossible to effing say. Oh, Allie Pilgrim, she of the soft eyes and quick wit, whose heart is pure, whose amity is fierce, and whose hammer never missed a nailhead. No one understands us, what we have. It's not in books or movies. I've never once heard a song and thought, oh, that's Allie and me. When two people spend most of their time together, misinterpretation is inevitable, though not surprising given the world's preoccupation with the horny teen. I think that's so true. And again, it's more pressure from society to box people in, to give them labels, rather than just letting them exist in their happy state. So it says, when two people spend most of their time together, misinterpretation is inevitable, though not surprising given the world's preoccupation with the horny teen. It's kind of like when a guy and a girl, or even two guys or two girls, or whoever spends a lot of time together, people just kind of assume there's romantic feelings there. But that's not always the case. I think sometimes you can meet people who are like soulmates, but they're not soulmates in a love version. They're soulmates on a different level, and you connect, but not necessarily, in a romantic way, but you still have a really deep and meaningful connection. It's like it never occurred to anyone that I might love my best friend simply for being awesome. That's exactly what I was saying. And to be clear, I am routinely horny, just not for Allie. Anyway, they don't write about us, even though we exist all over the place. I actually think it is more common than people think, these platonic relationships that are deep and meaningful without the love aspect. You okay, she asks. I feel like my stomach punched my throat in the dick. Allie nods. I find your biologically acrobatic metaphor appropriate. In addition to the tears, the throbbing head, the furious retching, it's also late August in Iverton, Illinois, a uniquely miserable combination for anyone prone to crotch sweat, yours truly. So yeah, I'm a blessed mess, basically. The park is silent. A bird sits quietly in a nearby tree, watching us. Have you ever seen that? Allie turns to look. Yes, I have seen a bird before. Right, but I read this thing once about a scientist in the 17th century who believed birds migrated to the moon because all he knew was that his favorite birds disappeared at the same time every year. He even calculated how long it would take to get to the moon, which apparently coincided with migration cycles, and since science in the 1600s wasn't exactly flush with cosmic data, vis-a-vis atmospheric pressure in space, when he theorized that birds were sustained by excess fat on their interstellar voyage, and when he said they slept through most of their 2-month journey to the moon, everyone was like, yeah, probably, that's it. You're a chatty drunk, Allie looks from the bird to me, though most people get less articulate. I've just never seen one like this, at night, sitting like that. I imagine this bird soaring through the outer reaches of space, alone and asleep, and it's the most peaceful thing. That paints quite a picture, doesn't it? Honestly, sometimes because I am somebody who really likes alone time, I really resonate with imagery like that. Just, you know, a peaceful state by yourself where there are no pressures from life or society or any emotional ties to anything. Like that is just what a freeing image that is. And that's what I'm going to write here. What a freeing image that is. A song plays from one of the houses surrounding the park. It's quiet but full, a beautiful kind of sad. I think there are so many beautiful kinds of sad. I love that so much. There's so much beauty in every emotion, at least I think that, but especially sadness or something so deep and meaningful about unpacking a version of sad, but it can be beautiful in so many ways because oftentimes something sad is because the result of something really catastrophic happening. And to me, I've come to learn that, you know, on the opposite end of sadness, I always tend to have some sort of big revelation or some big change comes in my life as a result of some sort of big sadness. And so there is beauty to be found in it. I close my eyes and listen to the woman singing, imagine the notes floating from a nearby window, bouncing around the playground equipment, the trees. Her voice is a whispery echo, intimate and tortured, and even though the lyrics are imperceptible, you don't need to perceive them to know her pain. With some songs, the scar is obvious even if the wound isn't. Wow, I love that. And this one, I'm going to use that double technique because again, it's something that's just so beautifully described to me. I love it. And I really feel like this is something that I would refer back to in the future. I use a lot of quotes in my journaling or when I'm describing something to someone. And that's just so beautifully written. With some songs, the scar is obvious even if the wound isn't. And this time I will use a tab because I really like that quote and can see myself referring to it in the future. So I'm going to take the yellow tab here, which is our quotes tab, and I'm going to add it to this section. And what I like to do, because I like all my tabs lined up, I don't like them sticking out at random points. My tip here is to first figure out how far you want the tab to go. I don't like it out very much, so I only do a little bit, and then to press down. So first, stick it out as much as you like, and then work backwards and press it down. I am concerned about you, Evan. I want to tell her she should be, that my old life as a building collapsed, my new one a sad composite fashioned from rubble. But before I can get the words out, nausea rolls again, and I must return to the bushes. Allie resumes her posture of protection, pulling back my hair as I let my insides out, and I think of the ways Heather Abernathy was wrong. Breathing isn't easy, not for me. Maybe I don't have to tell my heart to keep beating, but it's a runaway train these days. Oh, I like that too. I mean, who hasn't felt this way, especially since in this book, it seems like they are teenagers and all of that teenage angst and emotion and, first loves and friendship fallouts, all those big things that happen in such a tiny period of time in teenage years can definitely make it feel like your heart is a runaway train. Mostly, Heather Abernathy was wrong when she said that thing about my brother. Heather Abernathy is a sack of shit, I say, and now I'm crying as I vomit, and Allie sort of hugs me with one arm, guards my hair with the other. The song echoes through the park. The birds sit quietly on high. I'm a responsible adult, basically, I say. Allie says she knows, and I wonder how it's possible to love someone so absolutely and hate them so entirely for seeing me so completely. Wow, that's beautifully said. Allie says she knows, and I wonder how it's possible to love someone so absolutely and hate them so entirely for seeing me so completely. What a beautiful way to say, being understood is such a profound thing. One of my favorite quotes in life says, being loved is great, but being understood is profound. When someone can understand you beyond all those layers of yourself that you either put on for the world or put on for yourself, all those masks and layers and roles that we play. And then there's that really deep inner core part of us that only a few people know. And it's such a beautiful thing, but I can understand the sentiment of you hate them so entirely for seeing me so completely, because it is quite a vulnerable state to have someone know you on that level, because they know the deepest, darkest parts of you, maybe not so great parts of you as well, maybe the parts you're working on. It can be quite a vulnerable thing, and I can see how, it's a mixed bag of emotions to be seen so completely. So that's what I'm going to write here. At the end of the chapters, I usually like to put an open bracket because there's typically more space. I will want to write my reactions to that entire chapter or maybe just where it left off, but I like doing it in an open bracket style so that I have plenty of room and then I can close out my thought. So for this, I'm going to react to that last sentence, which I actually think I'm also going to highlight because I love that. It says, I wonder how it's possible to love someone so absolutely and hate them so entirely for seeing me so completely. I'm going to put another quotes tab here because I really think that is something I will reference again in the future. So I'm going to stick out my tab, put it down. And then my reaction here reminds me of one of my fave quotes, which says, it is great to be loved, but it is profound to be understood. When someone really understands us, I mean, that is just, to me, the ultimate form of a love language. I love that. Goodness, I did not expect this book to start off like this or even to be this layered and this deep all within one chapter. I mean, the author has really hit on some big life themes, and to be honest, I thought it was just going to be like a cute little high school love story, but I think it's going to have a lot of little nuggets about life and the human experience and some of the more complex things we go through, and I'm loving it so far. This is a really great start to the book. Shosh, an otherwise uneventful morning. The summer sunrise was especially vibrant, an explosion of pinks and purples so bright anyone lucky enough to be awake right now must feel its colors in their teeth. Or at least that's what Shosh thought, standing by the pool, taking it all in. It was the kind of sunrise to conjure vast ideas of one's place in the course of history, of purpose, of life and death, and life again. The kind of spectacle wherein an existential brooder such as herself might see the entire timeline of the universe and upon closer inspection recognize her own infinitesimal place in the order of things, the kind of sunrise that, Wow, what a description. And I'm just going to pause right here because wow, that is me to a T. I am the type of person that can get lost in moments like this. I love sunrises and sunsets. And for me, I am also the same type of thinker. I typically don't sit there and just enjoy sitting and looking at colors. It will always lead to me thinking about some deeper life purpose or where I am, what chapter of life, where I'm going. I can really relate to this because especially on a beautiful sunrise or sunset, I always have a really grateful heart, but I also always has me thinking about really deep and meaningful life things. So instead of highlighting or underlining this whole paragraph, because as I mentioned in that Annotating 101 video, it's if you start to highlight and underline too much on a page, it doesn't really stand out. And the whole point of doing it is so that something can jump out at you when you are referencing it back or when you're flipping through a book. And so I don't want to do that here, even though I love all of what this is saying. I'm just going to use a bracket and write my reaction next to the bracket. So it's a way to still annotate that whole chunk, but without making it obscure and having it get lost in a bunch of underlines and a bunch of highlights. So I'm just gonna do a quick bracket here. And I'm actually gonna write sideways because again, there's not much room. And this time, all I'm gonna write is just, wow, I understand this. Deeply. Greta effing Gerwig, am I right? Pulled from her sunrise reverie, Soch turned to find a girl wearing a bikini and a look of perpetual indifference. What? said Soch. The girl had a phone in one hand, a beer in the other, which she sipped with the measured authority of a true sunrise beer drinker, as if to say, yeah, I know my way around an aluminum effing can. Lady Bird, said the girl, Little Women. I mean, I prefer Winona's Joe to Saoirse's, but let's be honest, we're all here for Chalamet's hair. She clinked her can into Saoirse's bottle as if the two were partners in crime. You're into mumblecore, yeah? I don't know, said Saoirse. Oh, I'm Heather. Saoirse calculated the odds of multiple Heathers at this party. Abernathy? The girl smiled down at the pool. Yeah. We already know there's a history with Heather that she may not be the kindest because of what she said to Evan's brother, but we'll keep going and give Heather a chance and see what's going on. Before Saoirse could think of what to say, the one and only Heather Abernathy, whose pool they were standing next to and whose party Saoirse had effectively obliterated only moments ago, began to pitch her original screenplay. I mean, yes, it's Dragons and Thrones, but it's more like if Wes Anderson invaded King's Landing, totally effing edge. The Abernathy house, not unlike Heather herself, was an orchestrated display of flash. Everything was over-the-top luxurious, symmetrical to the point of obnoxious. The pool, a wide figure 8, was lit from the bottom up. There was a double-deck pergola, a garden gazebo, a cascade fountain. Most everyone had gone home by now, but there were still a few stragglers in various stages of undress, passed out or asleep, like soldiers fallen in the world's least noble battle. Saoirse's sister Stevie used to call them the three-step hangers, those who begged to hang out, tried to hang on, only to wind up hungover. That's interesting. I'm going to underline that just because I think it's a little funny. I'm not going to use a tab here because it's just something I enjoyed while reading, but not necessarily something I'm going to refer back to. A brief smile at the memory as Saoirse raised her bottle to the sunrise, cheers, and downed the last drop of whiskey. I mean, look at you, said Heather, reaching out, rubbing the hem of Saoirse's coat sleeve. You'd be perfect for it. For what? The lead. Heather's hand drifted up the sleeve of Saoirse's waterlogged coat. In my movie. Right, the Targaryen Tenenbaums. You're even funny. Plus, you look the part. Heather's eyes navigated Saoirse like eager tourists. Who wears a coat in August and gets away with it? If styles were climates, Saoirse Bell was tornado couture. That's interesting. If styles were climates, Saoirse Bell was tornado couture. Currently, she wore a t-shirt and said F guns tucked into high-waisted cutoffs, Sperry duck boots, and her favorite checked wool coat, an oversized Stella McCartney deal she'd snagged last year from a secondhand shop that didn't know what it had. Like any reasonable human having discovered the perfect coat, Soch considered the item more of an appendage than a garment. As such, it would obviously remain attached to her body for the duration of her time on Earth. The way she saw it, if you couldn't say who you were with your clothes, there wasn't much sense getting out of bed in the morning, was there? That's an interesting take. I may not necessarily agree with that, but I can definitely understand how clothes can be a sort of armor in the world, and it describes, who you are, who you represent. Interesting. Okay. There wasn't much to get in the morning, was there? I'm just going to write here, clothing as an extension of your personal brand. Unfortunately, at the moment, the entire ensemble was a sopping wet mess. Heard about your sister, said Heather, turning back to the pool. Effing sucks. Soch held up the now empty bottle. Is there more booze in the house? Heather handed her the rest of her beer. I'm serious about my movie. We should talk. Let me get your number. I don't really do that anymore. Give out your number? Act. Interesting. So our character Soch here is an actor, or was an actor. It seems like something happened to her sister and now she no longer acts. So these are just little crumbs we're getting. I'm not going to use the character or plot tab just yet because these are little crumbs. They're not actually something tangible. So it's not like something, I want to refer back to as like a actual meaningful event that has happened just yet. Heather said that was too bad, and then something else about following each other on social, how it felt like the night had brought them together, but Soch had stopped listening. A bird had caught her eye, flapping straight for the sunrise, and it wasn't the bird itself that demanded attention so much as the impression of the bird, the way its wings stretched out, not flapping, just a completely effortless soar. Time slowed, and the bird felt like beauty multiplied, elevated into something sacrosanct. Watching, Soch felt herself elevated with it. Chris called the cops, right? Said Heather. Yeah. When it was clear this was all Heather would get, she said, okay, well, good luck, I guess, and then turned for the house. Hey, said Soch. Yeah. Dripping wet, more hurricane than tornado, Soch said, why do you think I did it? I don't know, but you're an effing legend now. Only after Heather had disappeared inside did Soch spot the small horde of faces huddled around the bay window. Mere months ago, she'd been in school with these jokers back when her life was a rising star with LA on the horizon. But then she'd graduated and her star had collapsed, her life a cloud of dust hovering aimlessly in space. She raised a hand as if to wave to the horde, then flipped her hand around at the last second, raising her middle finger. Stumbling toward the pool, she could feel what a mess she was. You hit a wall, though, don't you? Reach a point where you're as much a mess now as you'll ever be, so why stop? Sadly, I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's almost that feeling of like, what's the point of like digging yourself out of the mess because it's such a big one, and you just think adding more ridiculousness to it is the way to go because you're stuck in that loop, that mindset of negativity, of feeling really bad for yourself, of feeling really down. And yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. So I'm just gonna put here, I think a lot of us can relate during our darkest moments. And you're just waiting for that human aspect that wants to live and wants to fight and wants to give it another go, that sense of hope that humans have. You're just waiting for that. But while you're waiting for it and you're in the mess, it's almost like you can't quite get yourself out of it. And so you just become, it's like an endless stream of just mess. At the edge of the pool, she crumpled into a sitting position, dangling her duck boots in the water.
On the horizon, the sun was higher now, a little less rainbow fire, a little more ho-hum sun. The bird was gone, and she felt the sadness that follows the absence of beauty briefly known. Melancholy, she said. Sadness never sounded so lovely. I love the way the author is describing sadness in this book. This is now the second time that he's referred to it, but in a really dramatic, beautiful way, as if, you know, sadness does represent a really beautiful emotion, no matter how negative of a connotation we can attach to it. There, like I said, is a lot of beauty in sadness, and even melancholy. Melancholy is such an interesting way to describe sadness. I actually like his choice of that word, because melancholy almost comes with that inherent understanding that there is something deep and beautiful and meaningful there. It's so interesting. She tossed the empty whiskey bottle into the pool, watched it float for a few seconds before water began to fill it, drag it down. Someone in the house had turned on music. It floated through an open window, found her here by the pool, a song so perfectly sad she thought the singer must understand her melancholy on a molecular level. In time, other voices rose over the music, stern ones carried by heavy boots. Let them come, she thought. The cops would inflict no punishment worse than the one fate had already doled out. Oh, that's so sad. It just sounds like she's quite hopeless. She's like really at the bottom. Sounds quite hopeless. For this, I will put a blue tab just to signify I feel quite sad for her. It sounds like she's really been through something. It seems like it is related to something to do with her sister. I feel like this might play an important part in the rest of the book, this very moment where I feel like the world just feels like it's on top of her and she can't get herself out of it, like she can't find hope in her melancholy. So I'm going to denote it with a blue, sad, emotional tab. As she waited, she watched the bottle sink to the bottom, where it came to rest beside the front tire of Chris Bond's Chevy Tahoe, which moments ago, just as the sun had begun its explosion of pinks and purples, Soch had driven directly and with great velocity into the Abernathy swimming pool. Oh my goodness, okay. Wow, I'm just gonna put a wow here. And here we will use that purple plot tab because that seems like quite a significant event. It almost seems like her life is about to change drastically from this point. I mean, driving a car into somebody else's pool is quite life-altering, and I can't imagine your life being the same afterwards. It looks better down there, don't you think? She asked the officer as he pulled her to her feet, all lit up in the underwater lights. Goodness. So it sounds like she doesn't actually feel a lot of remorse for what happened, but it seems like this is something that has been building for a while. So I'm just going to write, this seems like the culmination of a deeper life story, of a deeper life moment that came to a head. I think that is the end of the chapter. Goodness, I am so invested already. Like I said, I truly did not expect this book to have that much happen in just a few short pages. I mean, we've only read like 10 pages, I think, and there's already not even 10. I think it's more 6 or 8. And there's so much happening already with our two main characters. I love that we have both perspectives, from Evan's perspective and Soch. And I love that they both seem to be going through something quite deep and heartfelt and, you know, significant in their lives. Also, they seem to both share this like aspect of sadness and melancholy, and especially at their teenager age, it seems like they've both been through something really, really intense. So I'm so super intrigued to see what the rest of the book has in store for these two, and yeah, just where the plot goes from here. I'm already so captivated, really loving it.
That brings us to the end of our annotation session today. I hope you enjoyed that. I am actually very pleasantly surprised by this book and cannot wait to keep going with it. I hope you got something from today's video if you are new to annotating or just looking to switch up your style. There is, of course, no right or wrong way to do it. Everybody has their own approach, and my annotation style has evolved so much over the years, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve because, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it, and it depends on what book you're reading, what season of life you're in, all sorts of things. So don't be afraid, jump right in, and I would love to hear more. If you want to comment down below what book you're currently annotating or hoping to annotate soon. If you also have a request for me to annotate live a specific book, please leave it below. I will consider it for my next video, but thank you so much for watching today, and I will catch you next time.